Okay, 49.6 for manufacturing, 53.2 for non-manufacturing. What's surprising you the most here?
I think it will be the services. It bounced back really fairly quickly. In August, we had this big decline in retail sales because of Delta. And the worry is whether that will, the lingering concerns will continue to hold back consumption services. But looks like the number is bouncing back. And we did have some early indications that Mid-Autumn Festival spending is picking up. So that's good news. But on the other hand, the production, as you said, missed on the downside.
Yeah.
And I would say the negative is not entirely unexpected, given all this news on the production side. You know, the power crunch and also the housing market slowdown. And some of the trend is already in the data since July. You can see that manufacturing PMI has been slowing since June, in fact. And that corresponds to some of the industries, upstream industries, have continued to slow down due to the policy restrictions and housing market slowdown. But I would say to offset that is a strong export numbers.
Yeah.
And manufacturing investment in some industries are actually very strong because some industries have strong earnings and they start to invest and upgrade their equipment. So that's a positive to some of the sectors. So I would say, yes, the production is worse than expected, but it can be much worse based on what people had been worried about. And the miss is not such a big miss, and it's a reasonable miss, I would say.
What do you think is really dragging it lower to contraction this month? Do you think the energy constraints and the supply issues that we're dealing with right now, the power outages, is that what is dragging growth the most right now?
Yeah, I think, the economy has this dichotomy right now. You have a range of sectors that are affected by housing market, by energy crunch, by environmental protection. So those sectors like steel, metals, and other materials, those have been slowing. And I suspect in September, those sectors have slowed even more. But then on the other hand, the export-oriented, non-energy intensive sectors like IT, computer, equipment, those are growing fairly reasonably well, and leading indicators on export side is still fairly good. So I suspect in September you will continue to see this contrast in the manufacturing space. So yeah, the downside I think mostly come from the upstream and the sectors related to the housing and energy intensive sectors.
Do you see the energy, I guess you could say, the power crisis that we're dealing with right now globally as well, but in China in particular, do you think that's going to have a bigger impact than the Delta outbreaks that we've seen? And is it going to hit more manufacturing, or do you think it's going to actually impact consumption as well?
Well, at this stage, from what we gather, it's mostly the upstream. And we do see some anecdotal news that some of the factories in the coastal areas that produce components, for instance, they have to do some shutdowns for a short period of time. But it doesn't look very widespread. And the companies respond by saying they are going to run down inventories, or they are going to adjust their production hours to avoid the peak hours. So it doesn't look like it's going to be more widespread. And then this morning we also had the news, as you said, the industrial energy prices are going to be adjusted. There is some indication of that. So if that happens, I think some of the power production can increase a bit. But I have to say that this supply disruption, supply uncertainty is quite widespread. So it's probably going to be a continuing issue in the next few months in China and elsewhere.
And that's what you're forecasting for third quarter, 0.6% growth. What does this mean for the fourth quarter then? And you still have an 8 handle when it comes to annual growth.
Yes.
Can we still maintain that 8 handle by the end of the year?
I think, if consumption holds up as we expect, as we see from September PMI, then I think we have a better chance to reach that. And I think the downbeat Q3 number has a lot to do with Delta. And as long as COVID is contained in the fourth quarter and the manufacturing, I think the economy will continue. But at the moment, the world economy looks quite strong, and that's a very strong support to China's manufacturing overall. And then you have services sector. So I think for now we are reasonably happy with our forecast.
All right, and we're just getting some lines here from Beijing talking about the latest PMI numbers and saying that the fall was due to the slowdown in the energy-intensive sector, which we've been talking to Cui Li about here as well. Yeah, I'm taking a look at iron ore. That's climbing more than 5% ahead of the Golden Week holiday as well. So we are seeing a decent rebound for a second day when it comes to iron ore. Cui Li, I was going to ask you, we saw 9 days of liquidity injections from the PBOC. We might get another one today, we'll see. But does that bode well, do you think, for a faster RRR cut?
Well, I think PBOC is on hold at the moment for RRR cut because prices are rising. Upstream prices are rising. You don't want to inject a huge amount of permanent liquidity into the system at such a time. But at the same time, there is liquidity needs, and a lot of MLF is coming due in coming months. And also, we see that government bond issuance is picking up. So I think a lot of liquidity injection is in response to that need, but also to stabilize the market to support the sentiment. So for now, we are not actually forecasting a RRR cut. It's a bit different from the consensus.
Yeah, most people are thinking 50 basis points by year end or even in October.
Yeah, I think the fact that they prefer to use more open market operation to inject liquidity seem to show that they want to keep this more flexible, less permanent.